Next up, we have Team Reckless Deployment with their app My-tinerary. So can I please welcome Alex, Bex, Jason, and Poonam. Take it away.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Bex, and we are Team Reckless Deployment. Together with Alex, Jason, and Poonam, we created My-tinerary, a cross-platform app born with an idea to store all of your trip's details in one easy-to-use location. This app has been created to alleviate the inconvenience of searching through starred emails, creating confusing Google documents, and searching your group's WhatsApp and looking for scraps of paper you've made your notes on but you just can't find. My-tinerary can be used for both individual trips, group trips with friends. You can add buddies to your trip instance, which gives your buddies access to your trip's details. The goals in mind when we created this app were to create a mobile app and to use new technologies which were unfamiliar to us, and to create an intuitive user experience. Now over to Alex for the demo.
So welcome to My-tinerary. The first page that we see is our sign-in and also our sign-up form. But since we already have an account, we shall sign in. Our dashboard takes us to, and it allows us to navigate through all our pages. Our app also includes a handy pop-up nav bar in the corner. Let's have a look at our trips. As you can see, we already have a trip. But for now, let's look at creating a new one. Making a trip in My-tinerary is simple, as you can quickly add all of your travel info in a streamlined, easy-to-use fashion. In this case, we're off to Perth, Australia to celebrate our graduation. With no notes to add, we'll just add this to our trip. Now that we've created our trip, it has been added to our trip list. If we tap on our trip, we can take a closer look. Inside this instance, we have all our essential travel information divided up into accessible cards. Let's take a look at our accommodation. Again, in a really easy to use format, we add all of our accommodation details and add them to our accommodation page. In a similar manner, we also do our travel info. Just as before, when we add our details, it'll add it to our travel list. Currently, this also extends to any excursions that we may have, and just like that, we're off to the beach. Since we are students, this trip is a little bit too expensive for us, so it's going to have to get shelved. Lucky for us, we're still going to London. With all of our travel, accommodation, and activities sorted, our next planned feature is to add a chat app that allows instant communication between everyone who's involved in the trip. You can also see all of your buddies on the trip. And using our wonderful little nav bar, we can head over to our profile page, see our avatar, along with a few other utility features. In particular, we can see our archive trips, which are sorted from most recent. And once we are done, we can simply sign out, and that's My-tinerary. Thanks for watching, and I'll hand over to Jason, who's going to talk about our tech stack.
Thank you, Alex. My-tinerary is built using Ionic, Firebase with React as our coding language. The app works with a custom-built login with Ionic front-end fetching data from the Firebase backend, and any changes are then sent back to the Firebase backend and stored. We spent a few days researching and spiking different technologies. We really wanted something that would be kind of a good level of documentation to use and good examples that we could kind of guide us with the new technology. Something that was still slightly challenging. We ended up picking Firebase for our backend over things like AWS and eBay. It was quick and it was serverless, and it had a great balance of good documentation that was updated and that we could understand. We thought it had a great learning curve, and it had tons of additional features we were looking to include to avoid additional tech such as Socket.io. Using a non-SQL database was a welcome challenge, and getting our head around the collections and the documents was weird, but like I said, it was a good challenge. With a longer build time, because we only had about a week and a half, we would make more use of the built-in functions such as user authentication, instant messaging, social media integration, and push notifications. On the front-end side of things, we used Ionic with React instead of something like React Native or Flutter. Again, it was familiar with a nice challenge, and we really enjoyed using the React hooks. Ionic, React, and Firebase are a great pairing, and so it kind of helped us focus on the actual MVP of things rather than getting stuck on some little technical issues. Ionic has a build once, run anywhere mentality, and again, it allowed us to pick this up pretty quick. The built-in components of Ionic allowed for some clear design aesthetic from the jump, although overriding the inbuilt style sheet was a little bit challenging at times. Took some figuring out, and then we soon realized that Ionic 5 had only been released last year, so there was limited supporting documents online. As for testing, we had a variety of util functions, which we used Jest for, which helped convert the dates into some readable data by Firebase. We did have a few errors along the way, but I'll pass over to Poonam for more on that.
Thank you, Jason. So apart from the usual issues of infinite loops and not deconstructing objects correctly, we worked through some really unfamiliar issues that a lot of which we were seeing for the first time. We did originally want to test the backend API like we did when we were building with SQL, but we very quickly realized that being a serverless backend framework, Firebase didn't really allow for testing in the way that we expected. We could only make client-side calls, so we had to work from a front-end point of view and insert a testing wherever possible, like Jason said, in the utilities. We did later find out that we could test user authentication, which is something we could really implement in a different version of this app. Along the way, we found out that the order of building components was also quite important, aka ideally starting with authentication and the chat as they sort of interlinked. On Ionic's side, we similarly realized that the method of app deployment changes how the repo is made and how we can deploy it onto devices. It's safe to say that My-tinerary Mark II would be built very differently to Mark I. Finally, we found that, predictably, there is never enough time. During project phase, we were aware that our proposed app expected more than we could deliver in the about 8 days that we had to build. Therefore, we had to reevaluate our MVP to ensure that functionality and user experience were not compromised whilst keeping within our timeframe. This was a really good lesson in project management. Over to Bex for our closing remarks.
Throughout the project, we realized just how important productive communication and all-round soft skills are when working collaboratively. When working as an ensemble, it's imperative to be productive and flexible with time via continual but not unnecessary communication throughout the project. Not being precious with ideas or code is just as important to create a suitable working environment, ensuring everyone feels comfortable with any changes, collaborations, and rejections we may face. Anticipating potential roadblocks ahead of time and preempting any stumbles in order to allocate the correct resources as efficiently and effectively as possible. So, in conclusion, during each phase of the development of our app, we took the time to reflect and to ask, what could we have done differently? In being able to reflect on how we've handled and mishandled our tech and scale our expectations up and down, we've learned how we can approach research and projects in the future without making the same mistakes again. We can all agree that we've had a great time building My-tinerary, and thank you and that you enjoy the app.